Hello and welcome to Politics. Today we have a surprise, no old-timer politicians here on the set giving us lip service, but a Johnny-come-lately. His last name rings a bell, Sarkozy, first name Jean. He's 21 years old and he's the presidential son. Hello and thank you for being here with us on France 24. Since this is the first time you're giving a long televised interview, I'm going to introduce you. About 3 years ago, when reporters were following your father in his interior minister function, we saw, coming out of his silhouette, we saw someone atypical, a blonde person, and your face reminded us of someone. Lo and behold, it was Sarkozy, of course. Quiet, discreet, a stark contrast to your father and his fidgeting, holding a book all the time, usually about philosophy, somewhat in the background, smiling, somewhat shy, and observing this theater, and theater is one of your passions. We saw you reappear when the power handover took place, along with your brother Pierre and your stepsisters and little Louis, of course. It was a facade of happiness in the family that was soon to break apart when your father and Cecilia divorced and came along Neuilly. It was Dallas. You were supporting David Martinon, but then you let go. You gave up on him when you felt that he didn't have the right feeling out there on the ground. We see you come back with that amazing smile that you have that wins over young teeny boppers and little old ladies in Hermes. So following Neuilly-sur-Seine, there's no doubt about it, you have politics in your blood. I mentioned this the first time the journalists saw you. Nothing really gave us the appearance that you might have a taste for politics. I think you were at school in Henri IV. You were leaning towards a career in theater. What happened?
Well, first of all, hello, Roselyne Fèvre. I would like to thank you for inviting me here. This is the very first time I'm answering questions on a television set. Now, as opposed to what you think with this short and pleasant description, I'm not so much involved in politics as much as for a very specific issue. I'm interested in Neuilly, and I made the choice of being candidate because I really held the city at heart because of those emotional links. I was born there.
Everyone knows you? Does everyone speak to you familiarly?
I don't know if everybody knows me, but I'm very familiar with the social fabric, the stores, and I went to school there. I was present and quite active in sports or charity organizations, and I'm quite familiar with the field, and my commitment is a result of that past. This is no political commitment. No, this is a local commitment, and I'm really focused on local projects.
Some people talk about a dynasty. You didn't take a whole lot of risk. You said you did it for the love of Neuilly, or the Neuilly citizens, Neuillians, we call them. So you didn't really take a whole lot of risk there, did you?
Now, first of all, well, my name is Jean Sarkozy. No secret about it. Now, am I the only person? Why? Because my father was mayor. Am I illegitimate? Should I not be entitled to running as a candidate in a city that I like, that I know? That's why I'm actually sweeping away this term. This is somewhat of a pompous term.
No nepotism, you don't think?
Nepotism. Well, I could have actually chosen to stay in the shadow and use my relationships. This is not at all what I did. This approach of mine was quite transparent. I'm a candidate. I got a project, and I'm going to meet up with people who perhaps may have had preconceived ideas. So I did so with humility and determination. This is no nepotism. Actually, my approach was closely associated with this democratic context. Now, you're saying this is easy. Well, Neuilly is no fiefdom. No. If I had committed myself elsewhere, this would have been dishonest. No, I did so in this city in which I'm fully present. I did not try to defy the situation. I was quite attached. I wanted to provide the city with something. Let me just remind you of the local political stakes. The context was quite complicated, and this election had to be associated with a Republican gathering. I wanted to gather my political family.
When we first saw you emerge on television, it was to support David Martinon. You said, okay, David, we're going to support support you to the death, to the end. But you let him down. You let go midway. What happened? Did you observe him? Some say that ultimately, when you were going along with him, people were looking at Jean Sarkozy and not David Martineau.
Indeed, I got committed in this campaign, although I would like to really talk of the most important matters today, talk about the projects in future. But let's not backpedal. But I'm not going to dodge the question. I really was fully committed, and I wanted to be very honest, because as opposed to what I was hearing here and there, I really thought that we really had to get our shoes dirty, and we have to be engaged and really deserve people's confidence and trust, and that's the reason you saw me working on a project and talk of basic matters. I also realized that we had pervasive problems in this campaign, and I made a decision, and this decision was fully assumed. It was very difficult. I assumed my responsibilities.
You just didn't think he was good out there on the ground.
No, I'm not passing any judgments. No, I wanted to carry out a district campaign, a local campaign, a field campaign. I really wanted to roam the streets and be available and meet up with each and everyone and be attuned to people. My ideas when the district campaign were not just invented like snapping my fingers. No, I got 2 ears, and I really made a sum up of what I heard here and there. Now, on the field, we did not really feel that people adhered to us as much as we expected. And I had told the candidate, I was very honest, as I am with you today. And from then on, I made a decision, and I assumed that decision. And I really do feel sorry that people might have misunderstood this approach, but that's the way it is. We really need to press ahead and talk of essential matters, because people are highly interested. And if you were living in Neuilly, if you're an active woman, you'd be interested in knowing whether children may actually be accepted in schools or preschools, and how seniors are being taken care of. And infightings are really far away from people's concerns.
That's right, that's true. I'm sure you're interested in the daily lives of the Neuilly citizens. But what is it you like about politics? Is it not power? Because a lot of people are struck by the resemblance. Maybe we can have some video, maybe we can see some images. There's such a resemblance between you and your father at the same age, when he had your age. Do you think that ultimately it's true love for politics, or are you imitating your father just out of fascination for him? Can you separate those ideas?
Now, this is quite far-fetched, but I got no metaphysical problems with my personal situation. I fully accept my present situation. Now, this commitment is quite a heavy-duty one, and this requires quite a lot of commitment. You're taking in blows. Now, that's the way the political arena is structured. I'm interested. Well, I'm a can-do person. I really want to serve people, and what I like about the present debate is to be attuned, to hook up with people, propose solutions, and provide answers to people's concerns. I'm interested in this matter, and this is really what makes my approach logical.
21 years old, right. You did get a good experience in politics. You grew up in it. What's your first memory of politics? How old were you? What, 2, 3, 5 years old? What's the image that most stands out in your mind as a child?
My first memories of political life, well, in this campaign, I heard of this warlike rhetoric which was used by each and every one. But the way I see things on a local basis, and what I have been seeing since I was a child, it should not give way, is a commitment which should not give way to suspicions. No, this should be a noble commitment. And with my brother Pierre, when we used to go to pension houses on the 24th of December and just spend time with the elderly, aged people. We used to do this with my father, and this was quite important. I was marked by this venue, by this event. This was a non-media exposed event, which was a genuine event, and this was a noble commitment, and this is what I liked.
So you liked that, and the rallies, when your mother was holding you in her arms?
Well, true. Since I was very young, I had the opportunity to attend those meetings. I'm quite interested and fascinated. But once again, believe me, my commitment is really associated with a city and their people, more so than politics.
So you're saying that you're going to be a district councillor. You're not saying that you have a long-term plan. You want to be a politician like your father. You're not thinking you want to take over the next city and then be a minister. You're not thinking that way?
No. Do you realize... I mean, this would be arrogance.
But that's how your father thought about things, I believe.
I don't know. I just have the feeling that today I am a district general councillor, and the majority of the people in Neuilly entrusted me with this commitment. And I really have to be very serious and highly focused and provide services. This is a 6-year term, and I'm really committed to doing my utmost. Now, I'm highly concentrated, one day at a time, and when I see the work I need to do, well, I have to get started next week.
21 years old is very young. That's the age where people want to get on their scooter and go with their girlfriends and go to parties. And aren't you a little young at 21 years old to start in politics? You're saying before we went on the air, you said you were working and studying at the university. You get up early in the morning, you work until late at night. Is that a life for someone your age?
When you got passion, well, this is a life, and you really got to accept this. Now, 21, you got a limit of age, an age limit, which is 18 if you want to cast a ballot. And you hear each and every one asking for those ballots cast by the youth. And people say, well, they don't have enough experience and so on. Well, you got to make up your mind. I mean, you can actually come up with ideas. What's the right age? Do you know the right age for that? No, on the contrary. Of course, I am young, of course, and I still got a lot to learn. And as a result, I need to be highly humble. I'm quite aware of this, but I understand that this is actually an opportunity if we use youth to really work for people, and we're highly dynamic and want to help out people.
What do you think about your father now these days? He's been president for 10 months. Okay, I want to hear this from you, the son, and the budding politician. What do you think about your father today?
When I think of the President of the Republic, I do so as a citizen. As a UMP militant, that's my political family, and so far as my father is concerned, well, this is a loving feeling, but being involved in a political context as a general councillor does not necessarily mean that we need to violate this intimacy, which I'm very attached to and which I'd like to cherish.
You don't really want to talk about your father. Okay. About lessons maybe that you've learned, we want to ask you questions about the first round of elections. What are the lessons you've learned?
On a national level?
How would you apply that to national elections?
On a national level, I got absolutely no legitimacy. MPs and national political leaders and party leaders are legitimate to do so. This is not my mission. I'm a local and departmental elected official. I'm really focused on the layout of the riverbanks and local problems, how we can actually diversify preschool programs and give opportunities to junior high school students and promote school successes and disabled, aids for the disabled. This is a legitimacy because I was elected within this framework.
Are you still into theater? I know you had a passion for theater.
Of course. Now, people tend to get confused here. I don't want to become an actor. I didn't want to be a professional actor. I'm fascinated by texts.
Which plays, for instance?
I like classical plays. And I got my training with Jean Cochet, Molière, Corneille, Racine. And those are texts which I really love. Now, I'm a literary person, and I love literature as well. And I'm really interested in this matter.
Would you say that politics is, in a way, theater?
Now, this is somewhat of an easy question because actors can actually focus emotions so as to be genuine and real. And when meeting up with people, you have to be true.
But you do have to be a bit of an actor, don't you? Have a mask.
No, that's just a way of really describing drama from someone who doesn't really know much about it. I'm sorry. No, you really have to learn not to cheat. You have to be real.
Right, but sometimes you have to know to, say, leave your problems behind you, know how to smile and flatter when you don't necessarily feel it. You know that, don't you?
Not at all, no. When you're running, as I did, the approach is quite simple. You need to describe a project, support a project, and positive values. And when you got people in difficult situations, you are not going to embarrass them with your own personal problems. You have to be able to be fully available and devoted to others and kind of cast aside your own problems.
Politics, though, means sometimes you have to take blows, but you also have to give blows. Are you capable? Do you think that you have the strength to receive these blows and give these blows?
That's not the way I see things. At the age of 21, I don't want to really use the cynical image. I believe that public action has to be carried out for the community. We need to bear a project and convince people. And getting blows, perhaps, I understand that things might happen this way, but by dodging those blows does not mean that you're going to give blows. And in my own campaign, I wanted to be highly respectful of my competitors, and that's it. And commit myself in projects and priorities. We don't have to be cynical about it. If I were cynical at my age, this would be very sad.
Thank you very much, Jean Sarkozy.
Thank you.
For coming on this show on France 24 for your first interview. Very interesting to get to know you, because outside of the fact that you're the Nicolas Sarkozy's son, it was really important to get to know who you are and have some of your initial reactions. So thank you very much for being with us, and good luck, and stay with us. With my guest is Valerie Pécresse. Welcome back to Politics. My guest now is Valerie Pécresse. Hello, she's the Minister of Higher Education and Research. Thank you for being here with us. So a few words to introduce you. You won't get around that. Valerie Pécresse, or the discreet one. The discreet one who's on the upswing, but who is a hard worker. The first in her class, proof in graduating at high school at 16 years old, HEC Ivy League Business School at 18 and the ENA at 23. So a perfect, almost perfect career path, the train that just never goes off the track. Under the Chirac government, you were a minister. Under Sarkozy, no drawing attention to yourself, no showing off, the good student in the government, very good success in your university in reforming the university after a little stress. Right now you're succeeding. You have a good reputation. Mr. Sarkozy likes you. Would you say that in politics, when you start out so well, are you afraid of the fall? Are you always on guard because you're afraid that you're going to fail in a way?
Well, what I think is that one needs to know how to remain calm. It's a very difficult job holding this ministry, because it's particularly difficult to bring reforms. Things are relatively uncertain. I knew that it was going to be difficult. Many of my predecessors had to stop before the end of their mandate, but I thought this reform was so needed that I thought that things have moved, that people had realized the need for a change. And that, I think that for the future of the country, it is essential to bring these reforms. Now, I've come to the job without any previous experience in a ministry, with heavy reforms to implement, but I really believe in it.
Why is it that at some point difficult reform, some of your predecessors have failed, why is it that reform ultimately works?
At some point in time, well, there's several things. Of course, time makes people realize things, and this reform has been underway, or at least thought about, for the past 20 years. Higher education and universities have realized this for some time now. Even Ségolène Royal, in the middle of her political campaign, said, well, I also want to reform universities. So people have come around to it. But there's also the method for bringing an implementation into a system. Because a reform without financial means to implement it is impossible. Now, the harmonization of European diplomas, the democratization of higher studies or university studies is essential. And I think for that we need the full support of the President of the French Republic.
And you have his support.
Yes, we have the support of the President. If when the students are on the streets demonstrating the government wants to pull back, then it will never work. So we need all three elements, more financial means, a better dialogue, and some kind of perseverance.
Where things might go wrong for you is that Nicolas Sarkozy has said in an interview that he would like to continue crossing party lines, and he's going to call on Claude Allegre, and who wanted to streamline national education. And in fact, that didn't bring him much luck. He didn't have the right method, but he might take him in the research ministry. That means taking your job. Are you worried about that?
I think everybody can wish for things, but in the end, it's the President of the Republic who will decide, and it's up to him to decide whether he wants to keep the same person on the job, carrying on over the long term, or whether he wants to put somebody new in place.
Would you like to stay?
I think he's happy with what we've done in the ministry, but I mean, it's up to him to decide, of course. The minister is there to serve the government and the state, and if I am told that I'm more useful elsewhere, well, I'll go elsewhere.
No particular attitude about that.
What I want is implement reforms, and this reform, one of higher education and research, is essential to me, because I've started things going when nobody thought it would be possible. So I'd like to bring it all the way to the end. Well, that's my choice, of course. Now, if I'm told that there are other things to change elsewhere that are more useful, I'm there to serve the government and the President.
It was said that you had your eye on the health ministry.
No, I don't have my eye on anything else but my own ministry, and I have one wish, is to stay there.
This said, do you not think that Claude Allegre would be a good idea now that the reforms have been achieved?
No, the reform is not completed. It has been initiated, which is not the same thing.
You think things can get out of control?
Things can go wrong at every single stage, of course. Now, 30 universities have elected their new board, a stronger board to have a real effective governance of the university. And on January the 1st, we hope to have 10 or 20 universities become autonomous, but we're going to have to work on that and go along with them. On April the 30th, we're going to launch a new plan, a €5 billion plan to renovate our university campuses. And alongside, we are renovating the CNRS and biomedical research, which is
But wouldn't Allegre have the right method, or might he not? Might he have the dexterity to do it?
It's up to the President to decide. It's certainly not up to me to say.
Now, the results of the first round of the municipal or local elections, now before we draw all the conclusions, we have to see that the left has gained a lot of ground. What lesson would you say that you've learned from the first round of elections?
I think the first round has shown results which are more contrasted than we expected. The messages that we can get from that is not very clear, or not very clear. Everything is going to be decided on Sunday, and the whole direction of things can be changed next Sunday according to how voters vote. It depends on so many things. I mean, the desire to nationalize or not. There is no clear sign that voters are against the government. No.
I think it's a mood swing, expression of moods.
They might be showing some impatience. They might want the government to move faster, and I think we'll have to be up to that. So when we talk about lessons to be learned, I think we have to accelerate reforms. Well, in my sector, which is higher education and research, we have plans for students' accommodation, research, and many other plans, but we need to move faster, because all of the reforms of higher education and research will only bear fruit in 3 years' time.
Now, concerning purchasing power, Nicolas Sarkozy confessed that the coffers are empty.
That's what the socialists say, because they always have the same logic, which is purchasing power is public money that is going to be given to the people by giving people money or a check. No, but I don't agree. The good health of a country, France, and the people, is based on research, on innovation, on growth, on business, on lesser unemployment.
Working harder, earning more money, it hasn't happened.
Well, I'm very sorry to say that unemployment is at a level now that it hasn't reached in 20 years. It's very low, below 8%. We have greater employment today. Now, of course, growth, that's something else, because we've been hit by the crisis, which has come from America with the subprime and all of that. But the law we have passed on purchasing power, which we passed in July, this is, we have 6 million French workers who do overtime today, and this particular law on overtime has injected or given a boost to our economy, and we're doing better than some of our neighbors in Europe. The problem is that we are in a very difficult international situation, that reforms are not easy to implement, and the French tend to want results very fast. So people sometimes feel discouraged, and the voters think we should have done things in a different way or faster or whatever. But I don't feel it to be, or how, like the leftists, I don't feel the result of the election being something very nationalistic or massive or a way of disavowing the governmental policy.
You're saying that it's a negative opinion about Nicolas Sarkozy?
No, it's not. No, the decrease in popularity of the president has had an impact on the result of the votes, but only marginally. As a minister, I moved around France a lot, and nobody ever told me, stop trying to reform universities or research. No, not at all. Nobody says the government is going wrong with these reforms. No. We know things are difficult and things need to change fast.
But reforms aren't necessarily popular. We saw that in Germany with Schroeder, where reforms tend to equal unpopular.
No, I think you're very right in saying that local elections generally tend to be negative towards the existing government, because any change will bring about stress. And I see this in my ministry. We need to reassure people all the time on our intentions, on the ways we're going to do things, on the consequences these changes might bring. We have to work on bolstering reforms. We have to change our way of working in politics. We can't say a reform has been done when it has been voted. No, it has to be implemented. So that's why we have to work with people upstream, downstream, and alongside, so that we can ensure the right results. Because if you move too fast, you have commitment on one hand, but that won't necessarily grant the right results. If you negotiate with one person and another person cannot do what expected, it can be very, very complicated. So you need to have everybody's trust in continuity.
In an interview, François Fillon implied that communication with councillors, and in fact, the silence spoke for itself. Do you think that the president needs to do a little house cleaning in his communications between the General Secretary, Henri Guénaud, and the various advisors? Do you think that there's something that needs to be cleaned up there?
I thought about that. And I think communication between councillors is good. When it's just there to amplify what the president says. When it's there to explain what they said, what the president said, it's all very fine. But when it gets where it gets tricky is when a councillor will speak in his own name. When, in the mind of the people listening listening, he is speaking on behalf of the President, even if he's only speaking for himself. And that's a problem we have today. I'm not shocked when the President has made a decision that an advisor is there to explain the decision. I think it's a modern way of working in politics. But on the other hand, is when advisors speak on their own behalf and not on the President's behalf. That tends to bring confusion in the minds of people. Let me give you an example on Europe, for example, on the European policy. In that case, for example, things can get a bit chaotic.
So you think he needs to get them back on track?
I think it's worthwhile stating very clearly, when one is advisor to the President, one is not supposed to think for oneself or express one's own way of thinking, because whoever is listening to advisors will think that they speak for the President. And Claude Guéant is a good example thereof.
But what about the ministers? You yourself, you were a minister under Chirac, a minister under Sarkozy. Do you feel the pressure? They say that Sarkozy is forcing everyone to strive to produce results. Does he scare you? He wants results.
No. It's not that the pressure is on. No, the President is very clear about the rules of the game. That's highly appreciated. What I don't like, personally, and can happen in the field of politics, is when things are, how could I put it, hazy or unpredictable. When the rules of the game change, when you don't know what is expected of you and what you're going to be judged on. Whereas
he's very clear.
Our President, now things are very clear. When I first met him in 2004, when he was heading the UMP, the right-wing party, I thought I was going to be dismissed as a spokesperson for the party because I was a follower of Chirac. But he said to me, I want you to stay in place as a spokesperson because I want the spokesperson of the party to be somebody who doesn't like me in the first place. I insist. Now, it's quite surprising. Somebody who doesn't like me, so that's quite frank, to say the least.
Did you not like him in the beginning?
No, I was a follower of Chirac.
I guess it didn't bother some people.
Well, I didn't know him at all, because if one was a follower of Chirac, one couldn't work or have worked with Nicolas Sarkozy. He said, no, I want to bring everybody together, I want to unite my whole family, political family that is, and I want you to stay with me. And the only thing I ask of you is to be loyal and to work hard. That's clear. I mean, how could it be clear? I was always loyal and I always worked hard and it worked well for me.
A brief word before we go about the democratic movement, the Modem. Nicolas Sarkozy said that the Modem was getting too much publicity and we should just sort of leave them alone.
I think the President is right. The Modem strategy is not consistent and not understandable. It's neither here nor there. It's neither leftist or rightist, although they have interesting political personalities which are nice and original and all that. I mean, but those who are less sympathetic and do not share our values, we should leave them aside. Well, that's their philosophy, but it's, sometimes the party is more rightist than the candidate. In other circumstances, it's more to the left, so it's not clear.
You think he's going straight into a wall?
François Bayrou doesn't seem to be able to give a political consistency to his party or movement. He just defines the Modem as being in the middle. It's neither here nor there. It's to the left, to the right. I would like to know what François Bayrou thinks of the governance policy today. Is he for it or against it?
It's true that these municipal elections show that that the government is a two-headed structure, the classic left-wing and right-wing.
Indeed, I think that what these elections, the municipal elections, show is that in a democratic system there is a tendency towards bipolarization with something which is more in the middle to the right, something else in the middle to the left, but everything stays more around the center with two poles. These elections are local elections, and I don't see any clear political message to be understood at a national level. When Alain Juppé has 56% and other ministers are elected in the first round in left-wing cities, it's not easy to understand.
Thank you very much, Valerie Pécresse, and good luck to you. And stay with us in a few minutes. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Politics with my guest this time, Benoît Hamon, European Socialist MP. Hello, and thank you for being with us. A few words to introduce you. You are part of the young, up-and-coming Socialist Party members. You're a young tempo guard. You want to rebuild on the left, but without moving away from your fundamentals. You voted no to the referendum on Europe. You don't embrace the mottos of François Hollande, the go by the book, nor do you espouse Ségolène Royal's putting things in the right order. So ultimately, who is your role model at the Socialist Party? Tough question, huh?
I have no role model.
Are you your own role model?
Role models when you're in politics. You have to have convictions, and this suffices. I believe that this might suffice.
Okay, it's true that from the Socialist Party, a lot of young people say ultimately it's not the personalities or the leaders that count, it's ideas. But you know that that's not true.
It is true. Let me tell you, it is. And I believe that if we were just focused on one personality, then we'd actually lose insofar as the quality of our commitments are concerned. Now, what you said is correct. This is your perception. I wouldn't have to correct those perceptions, but this or those basics. Now, people are telling us that modernity in politics would mean a refocus onto other motives insofar as the Socialist Party, but nobody is really focusing on the last three presidential campaigns. Lionel Jospin's offer in 1995, 2002, and Ségolène Royal's offer in 2007 were actually a center-left offer, and we lost on that offer. And people are now telling us that because our line is just too much of a left-wing line, then, I mean, this explains our loss. What do we have to do? Do we have to be more
But you can't know that because Ségolène Royal was the candidate.
Now, let's actually stop saying that we lost because of our left ideas. We actually made a center-left idea, and this is the same offer in the whole European democracy. And we're losing power. And this political offer is no longer compatible with popular and medium-class expectations. Now, we need to be pragmatic and convincing. We need to be left-wing people without being archaic and propose an offer which needs to be more effective from a political standpoint. Now, what we're trying to embody in the Socialist Party is not a return to basics. No, we have to be modern in the left philosophy and proposes a more effective political pathway.
Right, but you need to define, it's a long story, but define what exactly it means to be on the left. After so many years of center-left, you get the impression that what's really going over is a personality instead of ideas. And you may correct me there, but it looks like it's Besançon.
Now, Besançon would be unable to establish a majority. Why? Because he made a political choice, which is as follows. He embodies protest and absorbs part of the popular discontent. But some people are not happy and they want change. And the left wing needs to actually grab power for those changes to happen. And levers are necessary for the implementation of a new policy. And I'd like to tell those who accept Besançon's message, there is enough room for the whole left-wing community to actually agree with one another with a project and an alternative to what is happening today. Why? 4 years from now. Now, that's what politicians need to do. They need to actually anticipate, unless there is a new election, unless, for example, Nicolas Sarkozy resigns. Well, apparently there is no
You're not holding out a dream,
before.
huh?
Well, I could actually dream. We'd like to have him actually leave sooner than expected, but this is not going to be the case. But what is going to be the situation situation 4 years from now will have enhanced social inequalities. Why? Because the results of those policies results in more social violence and inequalities. And at the same time, all of the various mechanisms to struggle against those inequalities will have been deteriorated. Social security, the state, and the European public power will have a more difficult situation, and mechanisms will be deteriorated. And that's the responsibility which left-wing communities need to work on. How are we going to work things out tomorrow when getting into power to make society more progressive and struggle against inequalities and remain competitive in international trade? This is simple and tangible, but why can't Besançon be at the table, around the table, and perhaps should he shy away from this protest initiative? And if the left only protests, then it is useless.
So let's look at the future. Let's talk about the immediate future. Just a few days away, the second round of elections. The left wing did have a few successes. Do you think that, like Ségolène Royal said, Hollande was more tempered? Do you think it's a sanctioned vote?
It's partially true. It's a nice score. It's a historical, unprecedented score. But now, the district elections, there isn't so much of that reflex. I mean, the mayor's position is so important, and the vote in favor of the left is even more powerful. And obviously, let's not be blind about it. There is some kind of discontent, and you do hear people, even right-wing people, are not happy. Now, the government is probably aware, and the government really has a hearing problem, so we'll have to repeat ourselves, and we need to vote for the left in the second round, in the run-up, and well, let's not just tell the government change policies. It's very tangible. The municipal elections are very useful and tangible. We need to really make up for antisocial policies as defined by Nicolas Sarkozy, for better access to public services and better access to housing and solidarity. Now, we need to have a general and a council and left mayors rather than right-wing people amplifying or magnifying Nicolas Sarkozy policies.
Right. That's good. Good, but ultimately, winning the municipal elections, this is good because it will help the Socialist Party improve their self-image. They need that after these various losses. But it's certainly not a full-on success because winning in these small cities, are you not going to go back to the tradition of municipal socialism, meaning that the Socialist Party has the keys to the small cities, but the central power